Thank you for attending our financial results briefing despite your busy schedules. I'm Satoru Iwata, president of Nintendo. Because Yoshihiro Mori has already briefed you on the financial results, I'd like to talk about the global market situation after the turn of the year and about Nintendo's prospects for the future. First of all, I would like to explain the global market situation. Because Nintendo 3DS was launched in February in Japan and in March overseas, our marketing focus since the start of the new year has been upon Nintendo 3DS. As a result, except for the latest Pokemon title, Pokemon Black and Pokemon White, which was launched in March for the overseas markets, no software could become widely discussed topics. Therefore, as everyone here knows, we have not been able to show a strong presence for our existing hardware, Nintendo DS and Wii, so far this year. However, the specific situation varies between each market, so I'd like to go into more detail. First, Japan. This chart shows the 20 best-selling software titles in Japan during the first 15 weeks of 2011. Now, the Japanese market is unique compared to the rest of the world. In this chart, there are 9 PSP titles and only 7 titles for Nintendo platforms, showing Nintendo's smallest presence since the Nintendo DS started to lead the market in late 2005. During this period, Nintendo did not release any new titles for Wii or Nintendo DS since it was concentrating on the launch of Nintendo 3DS, and the impact from the Great East Japan earthquake in March are some of the factors, but there is not a single title in the 10 best sellers that Nintendo itself has released. This chart shows the sales transitions of home console hardware in Japan. Early last year, the Wii hardware saw strong sales by maintaining the momentum after the launch of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Late last year, Wii was able to regain momentum with its promotion. When people get together, it's time for Wii. But since the start of this year, we have not been able to create titles that maintain high sales, and because we had chosen to concentrate on the launch of Nintendo 3DS, there was only one new title published by Nintendo. Therefore, I must say that the current sales are weak. This is very contrasting compared to Sony's PS3, which has performed in a similar fashion to the previous year. Of course, we need to shift our focus to regaining momentum for Wii, and I will talk about its future prospects later. This chart shows the sales transitions of handheld hardware in Japan. As Capcom's Monster Hunter has become a huge hit, Sony's PSP has been experiencing good sales in Japan since late last year. I am guessing that the large fluctuation in weekly sales is because of its inventory situation. Sales of Nintendo DS remained at a lower level compared to the previous year, partly due to the expected launch of the Nintendo 3DS. This is how the chart looks when we add the sales units for the Nintendo 3DS. The initial sales were healthy. However, the sales speed slowed down from the third week after its launch, which is not what we had expected for the startup transition. Of course, it is obvious that the great earthquake largely affected the sales, but I should not blame this situation just on the impact of the earthquake. There are other challenges that have shown up. Therefore, we have revised our scenario for diffusion and are making efforts to get the popularity of Nintendo 3DS back on track for the upcoming summer season. Next, the United States. This is the top 20 software sales chart in the US during the first 3 months of this year. There are 8 titles for Nintendo platforms, but besides Pokemon Black and Pokemon White launched in March, all other titles were launched last year or even before that, which is quite contrast to the hit titles for other companies' platforms. The significant distinction is the breakthrough by titles featuring dancing. This phenomenon started from a hit title called Just Dance, which I mentioned in the financial results briefing just 1 year ago. The sequel to that title, Just Dance 2, was a huge hit late last year, and later Michael Jackson re-experienced and Zumba Fitness were hits one after another on Wii. For Xbox 360, Dance Central by MTV Games has become the best-selling title, so in the United States we can say that a dance game boom has started, evoking memories of the past music game boom. This chart shows the weekly sales of home console hardware in the US. As we confirmed several times in the past, the monthly data from the independent NPD group in the US fluctuates from a 4-week month to a 5-week month. So in this graph, we are showing the weekly averages. The deep colors are for 2011, and the lighter colors are for 2010. At the end of last year, Wii was leading the market, but it was not able to maintain that momentum after the turn of the year. On the other hand, Microsoft's Xbox 360 has kept its sales momentum since late last year. One assumption for this contrasting result is due to the behavioral characteristics of the consumers purchasing the hardware. Consumers buying Wii today are more seasonally influenced. All hardware showed growth in February. This is said to be a rebound from the shrinking sales in January, which resulted from a cold weather spell and other weather-related influences. In March, there was an overall decline, but the rate of decline was a bit larger for Wii. We converted the monthly sales data issued by NPD into weekly sales to show how the handheld game devices have been selling in the US each month. The handheld hardware sales showed a decline over last year since the launch of Nintendo 3DS was coming up in March. Sony's PSP also showed a decline over last year but enjoyed a slight increase in March due to a price cut in late February. The overall situation contrasts greatly to that in Japan. There is only a week's worth of data for the Nintendo 3DS sales in March. There are 5 weeks in March for data purposes, and therefore, please acknowledge that the point in the graph indicates 1/5 of the initial week's sales. Nintendo 3DS started very well, but on the other hand, did not perform as expected after the second week. Finally, I would like to discuss the European market. Europe is a cluster of countries with many different characteristics, and each has its own uniqueness. To understand this better, let's take a look at the hit chart for each major country. This is the German software top 20 chart through March 2011. As you can see, there are 12 titles for Nintendo platforms, and we should note the fact that many Nintendo DS titles feature in this chart. The top positions of the software hit charts are lined up with major titles for Wii for last year's year-end sales, such as Wii Party and Donkey Kong Country Returns. New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Wii Fit Plus, and Wii Sports Resort are also positioned at the top. Also for Nintendo DS, the New Super Mario Bros. Title that was launched 5 years ago, Professor Layton, which was launched last year, and Art Academy, the software known as Egokoro Kyoushitsu DS in Japan, have maintained consistent sales. Similar trends can be found in many countries in Europe. On the other hand, in Germany, the dance game boom is not so large, and only Just Dance 2 is on the list. This is the French software top 20 chart for January to March this year. France has the highest number of Nintendo platform titles on the list, amounting to 13 titles. There seems to be a similar trend to Germany, but there is a general popularity for the Mario series titles here, and among the markets that I will introduce today, France is the only country with Mario Sports Mix ranked in the hit chart. Ubisoft's headquarters is located in France, and its Just Dance 2 is ranked in second place. In Spain, there are 10 titles for Nintendo platforms in the software top 20 chart for January to March this year. Traditionally, Sony has shown a very strong presence in this country, and among the overseas markets that I will introduce today, this market is the only market that has PS2 or PSP titles in the ranking. This is the UK software top 20 chart for January to March this year. 7 Nintendo platform titles could be found, which is along with Japan, the smallest number among all the markets I have introduced today. Dance games are selling well in this country, and last year, Just Dance enjoyed large sales. This year, Just Dance 2 is on top. The first iteration of the Just Dance series is performing well this year also. On the other hand, unlike the other countries in Europe, Mario titles were not able to maintain their presence. For the titles released late last year, Wii Party remained in the chart, but Donkey Kong Country Returns did not. The UK market is very quick to accept things new, and the market responds fast, but it is generally difficult to make games long sellers. At the same time, Xbox 360 is very strong in this market, and it is selling more than PS3, which is in stark contrast to other European countries. This is the sales transitions of home consoles in the European market. Nintendo gathered the data from independent market research companies in the European region to estimate the total sales in Europe. Late last year, Wii led the market, but its sales lost momentum after the turn of the year. Unlike in Japan, there are many Wii titles in the software hit chart that have continued to sell well, but we have not been able to appeal sufficiently to consumers so that they buy new hardware. In this environment, unlike the United States, where Xbox 360 is leading the market, Sony has taken the market lead. This is the sales transitions of handheld hardware in Europe. Last year, Nintendo DSi XL, Japanese Nintendo DSi LL, was launched in the 9th week, but we launched Pokémon Black and Pokémon White at the same time this year. However, since the launch of Nintendo 3DS was coming up, there were no dramatic increases in Nintendo DS sales, and the sales have been stable after the launch of Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo 3DS was launched in late March. The sales were high in the initial week, but sales fell below our expectations after the second week. Nintendo 3DS has not been selling as expected since the second week, and this is not just in the Japanese market, but also in the United States and Europe, where no direct impact from the great earthquake has occurred. Therefore, we recognize that we are in a situation where we need to step up our efforts to further promote the spread of Nintendo 3DS. Next, I would like to also report about the situation of the software titles for Nintendo platforms which have sold 1 million units or more. First, let me explain about the Nintendo DS platform. As of the end of last fiscal year, the number of Nintendo DS titles which had shipped more than 1 million units since their launches reached 51 for Nintendo and the Pokémon Company and 88 for third-party developers. As for Wii, the number of Wii titles which had shipped more than 1 million units since their launches reached 30 for Nintendo and the Pokémon Company and 73 for third-party developers. And now I'd like to introduce some of the titles. First, I would like to talk about this year's number one hit title in the US and Europe, Pokémon Black and Pokémon White for Nintendo DS. This title was launched in Japan in September last year and has become the fastest-selling software in Japanese video game history to reach 5 million units in sales and even extended its sales record further. This software was launched this year on March 6th in the US and on March 4th in Europe. Please see the sales transition of this software, which I have compared to former Pokémon titles. First, the sales transitions in the US. The red line shows the sales transition of Pokémon Black and Pokémon White. The blue line stands for the sales transition of Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl, and the green line stands for Pokémon Heart Gold and Pokémon Soul Silver. For the latest title, Pokémon Black and Pokémon White, the initial sales figure was large, but even after that, the sales are still growing smoothly. Next, I would like to show you the sales transitions in Europe. Also in Europe, the sales transitions of Pokémon Black and Pokémon White is selling at the pace exceeding that of Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl, or Pokémon Heart Gold and Pokémon Soul Silver. Nintendo DS became popular among a wide range of consumers both in the US and Europe, and Pokémon has the potential to be sold not only at the time of its launch but continuously, so we'd like to take full advantage of this software's sales potential. Also, I mentioned earlier that Art Academy is being well sold in Europe even after the turn of the year, and the shipment figure has grown to as many as 1.9 million units globally. As you can see, the sales in Europe, shown in green, have been steadily growing even after the turn of the year, and I assume this title has already established itself as an evergreen title for Nintendo DS. I suppose there are many consumers who are interested in art in Europe, and I feel that this title has even more sales potential. As for the software for Wii, I believe I should introduce this software first. I introduced this software at the financial results briefing last May as software which was selling in an interesting way. However, I did not imagine that it would start such a movement. This data was compiled by extracting the number of monthly sales from the US NPD data. Just Dance 2 has sold over 4.5 million units in the US already, and it is still the number one selling software this year in the US. Judging from the momentum, I believe this title has the potential to sell more. Most Wii software titles that had this type of sales pattern were first-party titles, but this Just Dance series became a smash hit, which is an example of success for the third parties. This graph shows the sales transitions in Europe. The trend is almost the same as in the US. For Europe, the degree to which dancing games are received differs in each country, but I assume that the sales potential is growing even in the countries in which the sales figure of this software is not growing steadily, because it has started a new movement in the larger market, such as the UK or France. While Just Dance grew into a smash hit series, other dancing games also started to sell well. Some major examples are Michael Jackson, The Experience from UBI Soft, the publisher of the Just Dance series, and Zumba Fitness from Majesco Entertainment. Zumba might be unfamiliar to Japanese people, but it is a type of dance fitness exercise created by integrating Latin music and dance. The sales transitions I introduced earlier look like this by adding these two titles to the graph. The unique point is that the sales momentum has not decreased even after the turn of the year, which is similar to the transition of the initial Just Dance. The same trend can be seen in Europe. Zumba Fitness was released for other consoles at the end of last year, while it was released for Wii only just recently, but I hear that the sales for Wii exceeded the cumulative sales for the other consoles only 2 weeks after the launch for Wii, which made me believe that dancing games and Wii are a good match. Finally, I would like to introduce Wii Party. Even after the turn of the year, the sales in Europe, shown in green, are steadily growing. This indicates that it has established its position as software that sells continuously, like Wii Fit or Wii Sports Resort, which became representative titles for Wii. So I assumed that the possibility of Wii Party selling on a long-time basis has grown. However, I think that this software has the potential to sell more in the US, so we decided to attempt to expand the sales further in the US, starting from this week. We will endeavor to bring you good news in the future. Now, as I have mentioned several times in the past, Nintendo is periodically researching the transitions of the gaming populations. This is a different perspective from how much hardware or software was sold, so I would like to introduce the latest data on this occasion. This graph shows the transitions of the gaming population in Japan. The blue part in this graph stands for people who have played games on home gaming consoles, not only Nintendo consoles, in the past year. We have defined these users as active users. The yellow part represents consumers who have played with video game systems in the past, but have not played with them in the past year, which we define as sleep users. The pink part indicates the consumers who have not played with video game systems at all, which we define as non-users. The research in January this year showed a decrease in the blue part of this graph, which is the number of active users in Japan, and the number of sleep users increased, which means that the gaming population decreased even though it was right after the year-end sales season. And when we color code the number of people who are enjoying Nintendo DS or Wii, the graph will look like this. By checking the number of consumers enjoying Nintendo DS and Wii, we didn't find any significant changes in the number of consumers playing Nintendo DS, but the number of consumers enjoying Wii had decreased by about 2 million people compared to our research 6 months ago. Also, as you imagine, due to the hit of Monster Hunter, consumers playing with PSP increased, but at the same time, consumers enjoying PS2 decreased, which became one of the reasons why the number of sleep users increased. Originally, the ratio of sleep users was high in Japan, and it is a characteristic of the Japanese market that more consumers tend to stop playing games compared to foreign markets. But on the other hand, we understand that this happens because we are failing to adequately communicate what software the consumers should play next. So we need to consider how to introduce the consumers to the next game and how to motivate the consumers to play this game. For your information, you may be able to see that the situation was worse for Nintendo platforms in the summer of 2009. But then the appearance of Dragon Quest IX in summer and New Super Mario Bros. Wii at the end of the year changed the situation dramatically. I think it is a unique characteristic of video games that there is a chance that just one software title can change the situation so significantly. The US showed contrasting results to Japan. You, as a Japanese citizen, might feel that because the data has shown a decrease in the momentum of Wii or Nintendo DS hardware, the situation would be the same in the US, but it is different. Indeed, the change in the non-user population, shown in pink, has been small recently, but the numbers of sleep users, shown in yellow, are gradually decreasing, and the ratio has become even smaller in the latest research. Now, when we color code the number of people who are enjoying Nintendo DS or Wii, the graph will look like this. This might give you a different impression to the impression you received from the sales transitions, but the number of consumers who are enjoying Wii or Nintendo DS is still growing in the US, even in the latest research. This is the transition of the number of consumers enjoying Wii or Nintendo DS, which we continuously investigate in our gaming population research. From this graph, you may be able to see that especially the number of the consumers enjoying Wii is steadily growing in the US. I think one reason is the impact of the hit of the dancing games, which have not caused a movement in Japan yet. And another reason is that the consumers in the US do not stop playing games easily, and they tend to search proactively for the next game to play. In Japan, 56 Wii software titles were released in fiscal year 2010, but the number was 245 for the US, which clearly shows the big difference in the situation. We cannot simply compare the two markets by the number of software titles released, but from the perspective of whether we are answering the various trends of Wii users, there might be some causal relationship. Now I'd like to spend some time to talk about our prospects for the future. First of all, Wii's successor, which we announced yesterday. We have decided to release Wii's successor in 2012. We plan to display it in a playable form at the E3 show to be held from June the 7th in Los Angeles. The specifications are to be revealed at the show. I am afraid I can't say any specific here today, but at E3, the company hopes to propose a new framework for a game system to be enjoyed at home. We have not released any new Nintendo software titles for Wii, except for the Last Story, Japanese title, in January, partly because we have focused on the launch of Nintendo 3DS since the beginning of this year. Therefore, some in Japan seem to have the misunderstanding that Nintendo has given up making efforts on Wii. We are actually ready to release new Wii software titles every month from May to the end of this year. Today, I'd like to tell you about our definite plan for this summer. First, we are planning to launch a new title called Pandora's Tower, direct translation of Japanese title, on May the 26th. The original GoldenEye 007 for Nintendo 64 attracted a lot of fans, and Activision developed its new iteration last year for Wii. Nintendo Company Limited will publish this title in Japan in June. This is Wii Remote plus Variety, already announced as Wii Play Motion overseas. This title will include one Wii Remote Plus and be sold at a special value price, just like Wii Play. In this title, you can enjoy a variety of 12 games, which are available only with Wii Remote Plus. Several video game developing companies Nintendo has worked with competitively create the game for this title. The development process was very unique. We collected some good ideas of utilizing Wii Remote Plus from developing companies. We asked the developing company to complete a promising prototype game that we had created in-house in the experimental stage. And our in-house development team even helped with some development. We are going to disclose the development process of each distinctive game in the future. This title will be launched in July. I hope you will play it with intuitive controls and have much fun when you get together with many people. The new Rhythm Paradise game we showed you in our financial result briefing in January will be available this summer. I tried out a near final version of the game and felt that this Rhythm Paradise, playable with a TV monitor, never loses the uniqueness of the original Rhythm Paradise. In contrast to Wii Remote Plus Variety I introduced before, this game is intentionally designed to be played only with buttons. We have sharpened such different attractions of both titles that we believe that you can have a totally different kind of fun. In addition to these, Inazuma 11 Strikers, direct translation of Japanese title, by Level 5 will be released in summer. Furthermore, an already announced new title from the Kirby franchise, Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword, and Just Dance 2, which will be localized by Nintendo for the Japanese market, and the other new titles currently unannounced will be ready to be launched within this year. Before the launch of the Wii successor, we will be aiming at creating other excitement for Wii in Japan, which has a large installed base of Wii hardware. Also, as we jointly announced with Sega last week, we have decided to release Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, the third iteration of the Olympic Games series where Mario and Sonic participate. We are going to release this software for Nintendo 3DS as well as Wii. The total sales figure of the two iterations of the series for Wii and Nintendo DS was more than 19 million worldwide, and we anticipate that the third iteration will also be a big hit. Finally, I would like to discuss how we are planning to work on the penetration of Nintendo 3DS. Before the launch of Nintendo 3DS, we have repeatedly mentioned the fact that you cannot comprehend the real value of the 3D images unless you view them with your own eyes. We originally expected that the value of 3D images, without the need for special glasses, would be automatically spread to some extent by many consumers experiencing the device by themselves and then playing with the pre-installed software like Nintendo 3DS camera, AR games, and face radars together with people around them. However, as a result of analysis of the situation after the launch, it has become clear that we need to do a lot more to convey the value to consumers. the value of 3D images without the need for special glasses is hard to be understood through the existing media. However, we have found that people cannot feel it just by trying out a device. Rather, some might even misestimate it when experiencing the images in an improper fashion. This makes it more important to give people more opportunities for appropriate experiences of glassless 3D images. More specifically, regarding 3D images, the parallax of right eye and left eye, in other words, how different images should be viewed by either of the right eye and the left eye, is highly individual. Therefore, we would like to thoroughly encourage people to properly adjust the 3D depth slider. Additionally, we think it is very important to provide people with contents in which they can easily experience glassless 3D images. In particular, we need to enhance the contents which can be enjoyed passively by non-active users, like a 3D video distribution service. We will promptly work on this after the currently planned hardware update. There is no easy road to making people understand the attraction of glassless 3D images and making Nintendo 3DS widespread. We would like to adhere to these patient efforts. At the same time, another mission we have to tackle in order for Nintendo 3DS to spread is the fact that there are some more things you cannot value without actual experience than just glassless 3D images. In addition to glassless 3D images, Nintendo 3DS has various features, including new communication methods like Street Pass and Spot Pass, AR augmented reality related functions, Me Maker, and so on. However, it is now clear that the combination of these new features is not necessarily easy to understand by just saying one word to those without experience. For example, Nintendo 3DS has pre-installed software called Street Pass Me Plaza, which utilizes the Street Pass technology, and all Nintendo 3DS users can play with this. In checking feedback from users in various ways, most of them think highly of this software once they experience it, and we feel that Street Pass has a great deal of potential. On the other hand, we have found that not all Nintendo 3DS users enjoy this software. There seems to be more than a few consumers who have Nintendo 3DS hardware but don't know about this software and possibly haven't had the chance to get interested in it. After all, pre-installing a feature which we would like many people to enjoy is not sufficient to make it actually popular among users. The potential of one feature will never become a reality unless we offer a chance to make people interested in it and invent a way of communication in which we can express its attraction in one word. We are going to focus on these actions at the appropriate timing in our marketing activities. In addition, we have to enrich the network services. Through the system update scheduled for around the end of May, we will be enhancing the network services, including Nintendo eShop and Internet browser. Since Nintendo eShop will work as the basis of various network services, we will be able to propose new services to users through Spot Pass. However, for the system update, we need to have consumers voluntarily go online with their Nintendo 3DS. We are planning to do some promotional activities in order to urge them to do so. More specifically, we will give a free download of Excite Bike as one of the 3D Classics series during a certain period of time after the beginning of the system update. We would like to announce this widely and have as many people as possible update their hardware and start using Nintendo eShop. Concerning the virtual console software, we will begin with Game Boy and Game Boy Color software and continue with this until we gradually realize the virtual console software for the other platforms. And this is the final proposition. It is clear from our market research that many people feel that they want to buy Nintendo 3DS, and the latest demand for this device is the largest in comparison with our previous new platforms at the time of their launches. But on the other hand, the big proposition that not that many people believe now is the time to buy it. The penetration will not gain speed without overcoming this challenge. After all, the way to solve this problem lies in how to communicate what kind of games can be played as long as Nintendo 3DS is a gaming device. There might be consumers who are interested in Nintendo 3DS, but they are unable to find software which they want to play, and they are in the wait-and-see mode. So I would like to inform you of the launch dates of software titles in Japan. On May the 12th, Steel Diver, a new game from Nintendo in which you will be able to operate a submarine. On May the 19th, Dead or Alive Dimensions, the latest title from the Dead or Alive series, which is the representative work of Team Ninja of Tecmo Koei Games. On May the 26th, One Piece Unlimited Cruise Special from Namco Bandai Games. On June the 2nd, Resident Evil, The Mercenaries 3D, a new title from the Resident Evil series, which is one of the Capcom's well-known works. On June the 16th, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, which took the world by storm in the Nintendo 64 era, and is the representative work from the Legend of Zelda series, which will mark its 25th anniversary this year, will be brought back in 3D as The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D with new features for Nintendo 3DS. On June the 30th, the first remake of the Tales of the Abyss from the Tales series of Namco Bandai Games. In addition, on July the 14th, we are planning to release Star Fox 64 3D, which is a newly arranged version of Star Fox 64, the most well-known game of all the 3D shooting games in the time of Nintendo 64, and in which we offer a new feature that uses a gyro sensor to control Arwin, who flies around the 3D space. As I have gone through right now, our software lineup will be swiftly enriched so that game lovers will be able to enjoy one game after another, starting from next month to summer. We are also planning to release a completely new title for Nintendo 3DS, Kid Icarus Uprising, after summer this year. Then, towards the end of the year, along with many anticipated titles from the third-party developers, we aim for Nintendo 3DS to be in widespread use among a wide range of families. We are planning to introduce a new title from the Super Mario series, which is a Mario action game in 3D space, that we will reveal at E3 this year. We are planning to launch many titles one after another, including a new title from Mario Kart for Nintendo 3DS, which many fans might be waiting for. Nintendo will be working with a full strength in order to spread Nintendo 3DS as a mainstream handheld device, along with the third-party developers and with our sales partners. Thank you for your attention.